My neighbor borrowed my ladder and never returned it. When I knocked, he said, "It's mine now. Try and prove otherwise." So I checked the serial number on my receipt. The next time he left for work, I walked over with a bolt cutter. That night, he showed up at my door with a cop. About 2 months ago, I bought a new extension ladder from Lowe's. Aluminum, 24-foot, not cheap either. I needed it to clean out my gutters and do some patching on the roof. I even wrote the serial number on the receipt and tossed it into my home repairs file folder, like I do with anything over $100. It's just a habit. Anyway, a few weeks later, my next-door neighbor, Mark, came over while I was outside. We're not exactly friends, but we've talked over the fence now and then. He asked if he could borrow the ladder to clean leaves out of his second-floor gutters. I said sure, just bring it back the same day. He nodded, said thanks, and wheeled it off to his backyard. That was on a Saturday. A week passed. No ladder. I figured he forgot, so the next weekend I walked over and knocked on his front door. He opened it halfway and leaned against the frame like I was interrupting something. I said, "Hey, just wondering if I could grab my ladder back." He raised an eyebrow. "Your ladder?"
Yeah.
"The one I lent you last weekend?" He paused, then gave this smug look I didn't like. "That ladder's mine. I've had it for years." I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. "No, I just bought it. I've got the receipt." Then he looked right at me and said, "Try and prove otherwise," and closed the door in my face. I stood there for a full minute trying to process what just happened. I thought maybe he was messing with me, but the tone in his voice, it didn't feel like a joke. I went home and pulled the receipt from my drawer. Clear as day, ladder model, serial number, purchase date, $289. I took a photo of it with my phone, just in case. I thought about going back and showing it to him, but something told me that wouldn't change anything. So I waited. That whole week, I kept an eye on his driveway. He leaves around 6:30 every morning, wears a reflective vest, probably construction or something similar. The next Monday, when he drove off, I walked over with bolt cutters in my coat pocket. He'd chained the ladder up to the side of his shed with an old padlock. I clipped it. No hesitation. Carried the ladder back to my place and stuck it back in my shed. Did I feel good? Honestly, yeah. For about 5 minutes. But that night, there was a knock at my door around 10 p.m. I opened it, and Mark was standing there. Behind him was a cop. "Evening," the officer said. "Can we talk for a minute?"
Mark didn't look at me.
He stared at the porch light like it offended him. "Your neighbor says you entered his yard and took his property," the cop said. "That true?" I stayed calm. I took back my ladder. I have the receipt and the serial number. He borrowed it, never returned it, and then claimed it was his. The officer looked between us. "Can I see the receipt?" I handed him my phone. He studied the photo. I also have the physical receipt inside. It matches the ladder's serial number. Mark finally spoke. "That's my ladder." He made a copy of a receipt or something. The cop looked tired already. "Look, this isn't going to court tonight. But if the serial number matches the receipt, and it's on his property, it's hard to argue ownership." Mark clenched his jaw, said nothing. They left after about 10 minutes. No charges. No ladder change. But now things feel different. Every time I go outside, I feel eyes on me. Mark doesn't wave.
Doesn't speak.
He walks by without even a glance. And that's not even the weird part. The weird part is what I found on my porch 2 mornings later. An empty ladder box, cut up and soaked with water, folded into my recycling bin. I'm not sure what he was trying to say with that. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I've started locking my shed and double-checking my backyard gate. A few days later, I noticed the trash can by my fence had been tipped over. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe raccoons. But then it happened again.
Twice more that week.
And it wasn't just mine. My garden hose was uncoiled and half dragged across the lawn one morning. Then my side gate, which I always keep latched, was wide open. I started wondering if Mark was messing with me. It wasn't anything huge. Nothing I could prove. But it started building up like a steady drip. Little things going wrong around my yard. Tools misplaced. Footprints in the dirt where no one should be walking. I felt like I was losing my mind. Every time I tried to relax, I'd hear something outside. A creak, a tap on the fence. I couldn't prove it was him, but I knew. So I installed a camera, cheap, motion sensor, nothing fancy. I pointed it toward the side of my house facing his yard. 2 nights later, I caught him on video. 2:14 a.m. He walked right up to my fence, looked around, then squatted down and unscrewed the nozzle off my garden hose. Just stood there for a second, holding it in his hand, before walking back into the dark. I saved the clip. I called the non-emergency police line and filed a report. The officer came out, took my statement, and watched the video. But all he said was, "It's weird, but it's not theft. Not really vandalism either." So that was it. Nothing happened. Mark didn't know I had the footage, but after that, he seemed bolder. He started parking his truck closer to my driveway, like on the line. Sometimes a tire crossed it. I didn't say anything, but it was on purpose. I could tell. Then came the night someone egged my back window. 3 eggs. One cracked and dried into the screen. I found them the next morning before work. Cleaned it up, checked the camera, nothing. The angle was wrong. It hadn't caught the backyard. That's when I realized this wasn't going to stop on its own. So I printed out the video still, him at the fence with the hose nozzle, and taped it to his front door. No note, no threat, just the picture. The next day, the paper was gone, and so was the nozzle. But that night, someone knocked on my door again. I looked through the peephole. No one there. I opened it slowly. Empty porch. But right on the doormat, placed neat and centered, was a small, black flashlight. One of those heavy-duty metal ones. My name was scratched into the side. I hadn't seen that flashlight in almost 3 years. It disappeared from my garage the week I moved in. I picked it up slowly, heart pounding. I knew he'd had it all this time, and now he was letting me know. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept the flashlight on my nightstand, just staring at it every so often like it might give me answers. But it didn't. It just sat there, heavy and silent. Just like Mark. Just like this whole damn situation. The next morning, I checked my backyard first thing. Everything seemed normal. Hose was where I left it, shed locked, gate latched. But then I walked around to the front and saw something that stopped me cold. Someone had scratched a line into the side of my truck. It wasn't huge. Just a single key scratch, about 2 feet long, right across the driver's side door. I stood there for a long time, jaw clenched, not moving. Because I knew. There wasn't a doubt in my mind who did it. I could practically hear him laughing from next door. I went inside and looked at my camera footage again. But of course, nothing. He knew where the blind spots were now. So I added a second camera. Then a third. By the end of the week, I had 4 mounted around the house. My backyard looked like a small prison yard. Not what I ever wanted, but I didn't know what else to do. 2 days later, I got home from work and saw a folded piece of paper taped to my front door. I ripped it off, thinking it was a delivery notice or maybe another twisted joke. It wasn't signed. It just said, "You think this is over?"
No threats. No demands. Just that one line.
I called the police again. They sent out a different officer this time. Young guy, maybe mid-20s. He looked at the cameras, took a photo of the note, but gave me the same speech. Nothing directly links this to your neighbor. Keep your cameras rolling. If anything else happens, call us. That was it. I started parking my truck in the garage every night. I stopped leaving anything outside, not even a watering can. I moved my garbage bins inside the fence. And still, I felt like I was being watched all the time. Then one morning, a week after the note, something strange happened. I came outside to grab the mail, and a little old woman was standing at the end of my driveway. I'd seen her before. She lived a few doors down. She was holding something in her hands. "Hi," she said. "You're the one that had the ladder thing with Mark, right?" I nodded, not sure where this was going. She looked down, then held out a folded piece of paper. "I think you should see this." I took it from her and unfolded it. It was a typed letter. No names.
But it talked about Mark.
Said he'd done this before. Borrowed tools from neighbors. Claimed they were his. Harassed people quietly until they either gave up or moved away. One line hit me hard. It doesn't break the law. He breaks people down. I looked up at her. She just said, he did it to my brother when he lived here. Nobody believed him either. I asked who wrote the letter. She didn't answer. She just walked away. I still have the ladder. And the cameras. And the flashlight he gave back like it was some kind of message. But I don't feel like I won anything. Not really. I walk outside now and keep my head down. I don't wave at neighbors. I don't lend things out. I don't even answer the door unless I'm expecting someone. Because once someone shows you what they're willing to do just to prove you wrong, you start questioning if anything around you is as safe as it looks. And the worst part is, I never even liked that ladder. About a month passed. Things got quiet. No more scratches on the truck. No more eggs. No notes. It felt strange, like that calm you get before a storm you can't see yet. I kept the cameras on, always checking them before bed, but nothing showed up. It was like he'd stopped. Then one morning I walked out to take the trash to the curb, and I saw a city code violation notice stuck to my door. Bright yellow, taped right in the middle. It said I had been reported for excessive exterior lighting and creating a hostile environment for neighboring residents. I stared at it for a long time. I knew what it meant. It was about the cameras, about the motion lights I'd installed. Someone, Mark, had reported me. I called the city and asked who filed it. They wouldn't say. I explained the cameras were for security and that I'd had repeated incidents of trespassing. The guy on the phone said, "Yeah, but you might want to keep it more discreet. It's a neighborhood, not a prison yard." That stuck with me. Not a prison yard. I took down one of the lights. Left the cameras. But I started to feel boxed in. Like everything I did, every change I made to protect myself, just gave him more ways to twist things against me. Then a week later, my mailbox was filled with paint. Blue paint. Thick, sticky, half-dried. It ruined every letter, every bill, every piece of mail I had. Even the inside of the box was coated. I didn't call the cops this time. I didn't even clean it right away. I just stared at it for a long time, like maybe the paint itself could tell me what to do next. That night, I went for a walk around the block. Not to clear my head, just to see things. Pay attention. When I came back, Mark's porch light was on, and I noticed something I hadn't seen before. He had a camera now, too. Right above his front door. Pointed toward my yard. I guess that was the moment I realized this wasn't a one-time feud. This was going to be a long, drawn-out war. Quiet. Legal. Unspoken. And the worst part? He was better at it than me. 2 weeks after the paint incident, I got a call at work from my insurance company. A claim had been filed on my homeowner's policy. Anonymous tip that I had hazardous wiring on my property due to excessive surveillance equipment. I sat there in my office chair, holding the phone, stomach sinking. I asked the agent what that even meant. They said they'd have to send someone out to inspect the property and confirm there were no code violations. If there were, my rates could go up. I told them the cameras were legal, installed properly, and no different from what thousands of people have. But it didn't matter. Someone was making it look like I was the problem.
And it was working.
The next week, I came home to find my side fence had been tagged with black spray paint, just one word. Watching. Not big. Not messy. Clean, small, and written at eye level. I painted over it the same night. I didn't even take a photo. I didn't want proof anymore. I just wanted to erase it. The woman from down the street, the one who gave me that letter weeks ago, passed by my yard a few days later. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at the fence, then back at me. "He's done that before too," she said quietly. "To someone else. Years ago. They moved out by summer." I asked her, "Why does no one say anything?" She looked down, then said something that stuck with me. "Because he makes you look like the one who's losing it." I didn't respond. There wasn't anything to say. I've stopped inviting people over. My sister came by once, saw the cameras, saw the locks, saw how I jumped when a truck door slammed nearby. She didn't say much, but I could tell she thought I was spiraling. I'm not. I'm clear-headed. I just know what he's doing. I see it now. But no one else does. Not really. And the truth is, that's exactly how he planned it. About 3 days after the insurance inspector came and cleared the cameras with no issues, I got a letter in the mail, official-looking envelope, return address from the county clerk. I opened it on the kitchen counter. It was a notice of a small claims court filing. Mark had filed a suit against me for property damage. He claimed I destroyed his personal ladder with bolt cutters, caused mental distress, and was harassing him through surveillance. I just stood there, rereading the letter. My throat went dry.
He was using the legal system now.
Not just tricks. Not warnings. He was trying to make it real. I spent that whole weekend digging through every photo, video clip, and receipt I had. I printed them all. Brought them to a lawyer friend of mine, who looked over the paperwork and just said, "He's trying to bleed you. Even if you win, he wants you to feel it." The court date was set 2 weeks out. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came the night before the hearing. I was sitting in the living room, lights off, watching footage from my side camera, just to kill time, keep my mind busy. At 2:41 a.m., I saw him. Not on his porch. In my yard. He stood right in the middle of the grass, hands in his pockets, just looking at my house. He didn't move. Didn't pace. Didn't knock. Just stood there. The clip lasted 48 seconds before he turned and walked back into the dark. I didn't sleep after that. I just kept watching it again and again, trying to figure out what he wanted me to see. What he wanted me to feel. Then I realized he didn't need to do anything else. Just being there was enough. He knew I'd see it. He wanted me to know. I couldn't stop him.
Not really.
I showed the video in court and I won.
Technically.
The judge dismissed the case, told him to stop with the nonsense. But none of that changed what it had already taken from me.
I still keep my cameras on.
I still flinch at sounds outside. I don't talk to neighbors anymore. I don't trust the quiet. And sometimes late at night, I find myself watching that clip, him standing in my yard, doing nothing. Just to remind myself that being right didn't make me feel safe again. It's not about the ladder anymore. It hasn't been for a long time.